Hey everybody, welcome to our final day of this 40-day challenge. We just completed the 4-day fast. I did it, Jordan did it. I had somebody else do it out in California. I'm going to share those before and afters. First, let me share mine, which you're about to see. Okay, there it is. So there's my before, there's my after. That was from the side, here's from the front. There it is, and then here's from the back. So when you guys look at those pictures, like I said, I tried to do as honest of a before and after as I possibly could. That's only after 4 days. I was already obviously in good shape. You guys have seen videos where I've done stuff with my shirt off, so you know that this isn't, some nonsense. What you notice is that everything's just tighter. I went from about 169.8, so say 170, down to about 162.6, 162.8, somewhere around there. About a 7-pound weight loss. I ate last night, woke up this morning, I was 165.6. So about half of that weight is true body weight loss, meaning I probably lost about 2.5 to 3 pounds of actual fat. Some of it's going to be lean mass, but obviously, look, at the end of the day, fasting has a lot of benefits, which we'll talk about at another time. But I'm going to show you Jordan's before and after. So Jordan, this is actually Jordan's picture at the beginning of the 40-day challenge. So here it is at 195 pounds. And here's Jordan's after, which is this morning after his 4-day fast, after he completed the whole 40-day challenge plus the 4-day fast. Here it is. That's Jordan at 176 pounds. So that's outstanding work. Again, father, son, we're up here trying to teach you something. The only way that we have any credibility, we got to walk our talk, guys. There's a lot of people that are out there trying to teach you stuff, but at the end of the day, people that walk their talk, people that do their homework, people that implement things are the ones you should listen to, and I appreciate you guys listening to us. My last shout out is to Andre out in California, who not only did the 4-day fast and the 40-day challenge, he did all of the meditation work, the breathing work in the morning. He did everything. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that today, just briefly. But this is Andre just before the 4-day fast. So Andre was already in pretty good shape. So this is Andre right here. That's him at 179 pounds. And this is Andre right here. That's at 171 pounds. So 8 pounds of weight loss in 4 days. You can see a big difference again, tighter, more ripped, amazing stuff. Remember what I said, long-term fasting isn't for unhealthy people. I say that because if a person who is unhealthy extends a fast a long time, a lot of things happen in the body. Cortisol goes up, adrenaline goes up. Guess what else happens? We talked about this. Some antioxidants go up, including uric acid. So people that fast for long periods of time that are unhealthy can easily get gout. So this is not a crash diet. There's a reason why we did 40 days, teaching you guys these things, explaining how things work, and then implement them. What I want to show you right now is what came out yesterday from MedCrim. Yesterday, what came out from MedCrim, I'm going to put a link right here, comes out talking about COVID-19 is most likely a disease basically of mitochondrial dysfunction, oxidative stress. And what we're going to do, Jordan and I are going to do, is give you part 1 of this video. So this video, if you watch it, it's long. I already put the link up. There's about 15 minutes where they explain how mitochondria work. Now, if you recall, I'm going to take you up here. Take a look. We talked about up here, we talked about that there's an electron transport chain, right? And we talked about how there's a backup and there's oxidative stress. And then we talked about ATP and fatty acid spillover, and we talked about proteins, carbs, and fats. We actually explained the whole process in this video, but what I will say is that if you watch this MedCram video, you're gonna get confused real fast. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take pieces of the video. So today's an example. We're gonna take pieces of the video, stop it. We're going to go further into the biochem here, further into what's being explained, because the more you know, the better off you are. So what are we gonna do? What we're doing right now is we're starting a new 40-day challenge. But this time, the videos that Jordan and I make are gonna be together and they're gonna be private. If you wanna sign up, because guys, at the end of the day, the evidence is already there about what's possible, right, in 40 days. So I'll share more success stories going forward, day by day. We've had a lot of people participate in the 40-day challenge, but the bottom line is, if you don't have skin in the game, if you're not invested in what we're doing and what we're trying to teach you, you're unlikely to be successful. So if you want to be a student and you want to be part of this private video conversation, we're going to charge less than a cup of coffee a day. So for 40 days, we're going to charge $99. And each day you'll get a private video from us. And each day I will also, if you're interested, send you my meditation work, which we've been building on, and our breath work. And I will also put out an exercise video. But again, it's going to be private. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a flavor today of what we're going to do. We're going to, first 10 days, we're going to break down this mitochondrial dysfunction. We're going to break down what we see here with proteins, carbs, and fats. We're going to break down why it's so important to understand this, because it's not just COVID-19. When we talk about, when the suggestion is that this is a disease of mitochondrial dysfunction, it's a disease of oxidative stress. Guess what? All disease, almost all disease, is a result of this type of oxidative stress, this type of mitochondrial dysfunction. It absolutely leads to disease, and COVID-19 is just one of them. So if you really want to understand, how do I get healthy? How do I optimize my nutrients? What's happening along the way? Why do things like breath work and meditation and exercise and how you eat and what supplements, why do they matter? What is it about zinc, copper, manganese, glutathione, iron along the pathway here that's happening in mitochondria? You're going to learn all that. So let's start off with this MedCram video. We're going to go in just one little piece of it so you guys can get a flavor of what we're up to.
I think a potential answer lies in the explanation that COVID-19 is an endothelial disease, and it uses the lungs to get inside the body. And it no doubt causes disease in the lungs, but once it gets inside the body, that's where it causes its greatest damage. Now, over the next series of videos, what I'd like to do is explain exactly what I'm talking about using peer-reviewed journals, articles, and research. But for you to understand a lot of what we're talking about, we're going to be using the language of oxidative stress. And for you to fully understand that, we're going to have to go back to medical school and refresh on some basic things. So please bear with me as we go over some basic ideas in terms of metabolism, oxidation, energy production, and some plain old biochemistry. The first thing that we have to talk about is the batteries of your cell. These are called mitochondria, and they exist in the cell to produce energy. They also have their own DNA called mitochondrial DNA, which we'll talk about later. Now, notice in mitochondria, there is something called the matrix, which is this thing in the center. It's a space in the center. And then there's a space around the edge called the intermembrane space, and that's because it's between two membranes. That'll become important later. Here, we've drawn it out schematically. Here's the matrix in the middle, and the intermembrane space around the outside. So when you eat food, there's only three types of products that really matter, and those are carbs, fats, and proteins.
And we'll start,
regardless of which one it is for now.
We'll stop there. We'll stop with carbs, fats, and proteins. Now, I promise you, if you keep watching that video, it's not going to be long before you get lost. And that's why we're offering you to break this down kind of minute by minute over the next 10 videos so you really understand what's happening here. Remember, these videos are for doctors, not for the average person. Jordan has a degree in biochem, and you guys are going to see that our ability to break this down will give you insights to not only what's being said on this video, but other things that are not being said on this video. I already pointed to Dr. Lee No's work, who is probably the world's leading expert on mitochondria, which is what's being described here. And you will get insights from Dr. Lee No and his research, as well as from this video, that you can implement in your life right now. So let's start off with proteins, carbs, and fats. So up here, we put a list earlier. We were talking in the context of insulin. We're talking about controlling insulin. But when we talk about carbs, we wanted to make sure we're reducing sugar, increasing fiber, and fermented foods, assuming that you don't have a histamine intolerance. We talked about getting protein from various sources, including plants, fish, animal products, organ meats, and fats from nuts, seeds, oils, etc. We also talked a lot about ATP, and that's going to come into play a lot in this video. So when it comes to what we're eating, you really can break things down into proteins, carbs, and fats. And we explained briefly, to keep it super simple, how to make it easy for your brain to go, well, what should I eat? What shouldn't I eat? What types of proteins? What types of carbs? What types of fats? Now you can further break down things like fats. You can break them down into your omega-3s, your omega-6s, your omega-9s, omega-7s. There's all these different omega fats that literally do different things. Similarly, we put out a video, Jordan and I, on protein, talking about amino acids, right? So proteins are made up of amino acids, and we spoke about very particular amino acids. Those are your proteins. And then, of course, your carbohydrates, we broke down into the complex as opposed to simple, and we want to make sure that we're eating more fibrous foods as much as we possibly can. So, George, why don't you give us an insight as to, just briefly, when we're talking about mitochondrial health, we talked about how food eventually gets broken down into electrons. Mm-hmm. So just give a very brief understanding of what happens along the way. How does that occur?
How do they go from like the full carb to the electrons?
Talk a little bit about the Krebs cycle, and then before we even get into the electron transport chain, mm-hmm. just talk a little bit about what's happening when we eat, and how does this get broken down?
Sure. It's a little bit different for carbs, fats, and proteins. For fats, they're usually oxidized first, and the fats are oxidized into ketones and shorter chain fatty acids, and those can then be transferred into the mitochondria. Carbs are usually fermented in your gut, especially if they're starches, longer chain fibers, stuff like that, into the same things that fats are being metabolized into at the end of the day. Longer chain carbs and starches can get broken down into the same short chain fatty acids, and those will eventually get broken down into ketones. Proteins are a little bit different. If you're eating a lot of protein and lower carb and fat, you can actually do something called gluconeogenesis, which is where you create glucose from things that aren't glucose. So you can create glucose from components of the proteins like amino acids. But at the end of the day, all these components are being shuttled into the mitochondria and being turned into acetyl-CoA, which is a coenzyme that is part of the Krebs cycle that allows the mitochondria to produce part of what allows the mitochondria to produce energy in the form of ATP.
Right. So if you watch the MedCrim video, you're going to see that this gets very complicated, and each step along the way, we'll break it down, so that you understand, well, why do certain nutrients matter, and how do things go wrong? Now, at the end of the day, things go wrong because, and this is not emphasized enough in the video, it's said, but it's not emphasized enough in the video. Things go wrong when you eat too much. Meaning, we talked about how it's like, instead of thinking of it as an electron transport chain, it's an electron transport train. Now, as I'm talking, I want you to keep in mind that this is the latest theory that we have on why COVID-19 is presenting the way it does. And I want you to also recognize that we talked about it more than 3 weeks ago. We talked about the consequences of oxidative stress. We talked about fatty acid spillover. We talked about all these things about how to have young, healthy, robust mitochondria. So appreciate that it's already been spoken about and kept in as simple terms as we possibly can. But what I find is that if people really, really understand why, what's happening, what's going wrong, they're much more likely to stay compliant to the science within your body, because at the end of the day, you're a biological organism filled with trillions of cells. So if you want to watch the MedCram video on your own, be my guest. If you can follow what's being said, good for you. If not, if you want to jump on board for our next 40-day challenge, and we're going to go through that video and you're going to understand more about mitochondria, ATP, and how to have young, robust mitochondria better than anybody, I promise you that, and implement it into your life, get your head right, start training, start eating right, change your environment in your house, meaning get the stuff out of the pantry that doesn't belong. This 40-day challenge is for you, because you can have everything we just did and more, but you got to have that head in the right space. All right, so like I said, for less than a cup of coffee a day, you can join us. You'll get our private videos, and we'll continue to teach you with pleasure. But until tomorrow, have a good day, everybody, and it's going to be a great weekend, so get out into the sun. All right, thank you for your time. So